Vermont, to those who named it, meant a land of friendly green mountains. A land perhaps not easy, but rewarding in its response to those who loved and won it, and made the term Vermonter a symbol of resourceful and contented independence. To the many who visit Vermont today, its meanings are as varied as their expectations, and the pleasures it affords are by no means always measured in money. The waters are open to holiday makers with yachts. They're open to those who like to dive and swim and bask on the hundreds of beaches. Recreation may be as active or as restful as the age and disposition of vacationers may prefer, although there is ample evidence that in Vermont, years seem to do little to abate a youthful zest in living. Some visitors enjoy the facilities of family resort centers, while others choose the more rural Vermont of apple blossoms signaling spring in hillside orchards. Some prefer summer horseback trips over miles of little-traveled roads and woodland trails, trails which turn to red and gold when autumn shimmers northward through the mountains. And, of course, there are the famous mountain slopes where snow lies crisp and deep throughout the winter. What can Vermont mean to you? Well, if you're an artist like William Chaldack, it will mean an infinite variety of subjects for your brush and canvas. To Sam Ogden, it has meant the creative satisfaction of restoring a once abandoned community to vigorous life, largely by the work of his own hands. To those who admire the skills of long ago, it has meant an adventure in spreading the gospel of distinctive Vermont handicrafts, as expressed in the work of the Vermont Guild of Old-Time Crafts and Industries. Vermont may come to mean to you, as it has to folks like these, a gracious farmhouse against a hillside, a bit of lake shore, a refuge for days of ease upon retirement, or a fine old house on a tree-bordered village street. And as the real meaning of Vermont comes to you, you'll find it also means Vermonters, the people who made it and kept it what it is, and may well be proud of the results. Henry Channing is a Vermonter, and this is the story of the house he has for sale. Perhaps you, even as he, may learn more about Vermont through those who come to buy.
Well, I guess nobody's home.
Hi there.
Are you Mr. Channing?
That's right.
My name is Tom Hughes.
How do you do, sir?
This is my wife.
How do you do, Mr. Channing?
We saw your advertisement for a place for sale in the Vermont Farms and Summer Homes. So we thought the first opportunity we had, we would drop out for some more information. If it hasn't been sold.
Nope, not yet. Quite a few people asked about it, but we haven't found the right ones yet, and the house still belongs to me. Why don't you come in and we'll talk about it?
We'd like to.
Is that the rest of your family in the car?
Yes, those are our youngsters.
Well, ask them to come in, too, and we'll get better acquainted all around.
Bob, you and Sue, come in.
I wonder, Mr. Channing, if the house you had advertised is the one that we saw up in the village with your sign on it.
I guess it is all right. Here's a picture of it.
We thought it was just perfect. Couldn't we go over and see it now?
Maybe we might get to that later. I'd hate to waste your time going through the house if it wouldn't be the place you ought to buy.
But it's for sale, isn't it?
Well, when I sell the place, I aim to sell it to people who really enjoy living here.
Well, we're not exactly newcomers to Vermont. I think each one of us has discovered it more or less for himself during vacation trips. Bob there was our family pioneer.
Yes, young Bob Hughes was the first to introduce his family to Vermont. It was just after his 12th birthday that he first went to camp and had a real practical taste of farm life. And this was a real experience for a city boy. The mysteries of milking a cow, for example, and the picking of berries, which he had never seen outside the basket before. The youngsters even made their own blueberry pies, right down to the last crimp on the crust, and were as wrapped up in their work as any great creative artist. They turned out another kind of artistic baked goods there, too, and it was amazing what skill some of the youngsters showed in modeling clay figures that were fired in their homemade outdoor kiln. It would be almost impossible to guess how many boys and girls have learned to swim at Vermont camps, but there must be a great many thousands, because the state has more than 400 lakes and ponds, and there seem to be camps on most of them. The active outdoor life is grand for appetites, and not that a growing boy needs much encouragement, but when the dinner bell rings, you can see some highly convincing reasons why Vermont farms have to grow so much good food. Those boys were a healthy, well-fed crew at the end of that summer. But Bob Hughes was not the only one of the family to visit Vermont before this trip. Mr. and Mrs. Hughes had once spent their vacation in the land of the Green Mountains, and it was then that they first came to love horses and riding. There's nothing quite like these trails and back roads with a good horse under you, and this is the land of good horses, for here the Morgan breed was born and developed. There's an endless panorama of hills and woodland here, a never-ending trail for young and old, one of the pleasantest riding countries in the world. The breeding of Morgan horses began just after the Revolution, and the United States Department of Agriculture still maintains a farm to perpetuate one of America's most noble animals. For over 150 years, the descendants of the original Justin Morgan have shown the qualities which made him famous. In the early days, it was these horses which cleared the fields and helped Vermont grow up. Yes, Morgan blood has produced honest workhorses for farms, famous trotters for the racetrack, and staunch warriors for the Army's cavalry. Good-tempered and gentle, they are an integral part of the Green Mountain State. And what about young Sue? Surely she has not been left out of this family's experiences. Indeed, she hasn't. For Sue has been to camp in Vermont, too, and she has as many reasons for wanting to live here. Sue's camp was typical of many. A little strenuous, you think? Well, it all depends on the point of view, and these youngsters certainly look as if the life agreed with them. It's important to learn to swim, though, especially before venturing out in a canoe. Ah, but this is the life. The silent dip of the paddle, the ripple of clean, cool water, the reflections of leafy banks and deep blue skies in lakes which have few equals. Perhaps the biggest value in camping anywhere can be found in Vermont state forests and state forest camps. They're scattered all over the state, and some ardent campers visit a different one every summer. You bring your own camping equipment and perhaps even a tent to these areas, and for about $1 a day can enjoy all the advantages of a holiday in the woods, plus ready-made shelters, tent floors, and outdoor fireplaces with plenty of cut wood. There's a reason why so many families come to the state forest parks. They find their own kind of folks here, perhaps someone to go berrying with, or for the youngsters to play with, or a place to get a fast game of horseshoes when they want a little action. And then, of course, there's the long trail for those who really like to hike. From the Massachusetts line to the Canadian border, this trail winds over mountain top, through green valleys, and past sky blue lakes. There are shelters along the way up, too, and they're especially welcome after a long climb. "250 miles of some of the most beautiful scenery in the country. This is Vermont's Long Trail." Tom Hughes is looking forward to doing a little fishing. Once he's established with his own home in the heart of the fishing country, up to now, he has heard only the glowing tales of fishermen who have found Vermont lakes the answer to their fondest dreams. Want to get away from it all? Well, a lake like this is just the place. Comfortable fishing camps and guides who have made a career of learning where the big ones can be found will give any fisherman the time of his life. There's plenty of stream fishing, too. Fast-running, well-stocked water can be found all over Vermont State, and some fellows carry their rods and flies with them all the time. There's the beauty of life in the Green Mountains. If you're in the mood to fish, well, why not? Yes, the Hughes family has told us a good deal about Vermont. And maybe Henry Channing has learned a few things about his own state, too. Perhaps he may take the beauties of autumn more or less for granted. But in the eyes of Mrs. Hughes, and yes, thousands of visitors each year, the glories of a blazing display of foliage are too breathtaking for words. And now the snows of a New England winter come to Vermont. Along roads kept free of snow by trained highway crews come thousands of skiers from far and near. On countless Vermont hillsides are the polished tracks of gliding skis, and the white plumes of flying powder mark the path of the nation's favorite winter recreation. Skiing is for everyone, and whether you're an expert or just a beginner, you'll find Vermont winter holidays the very top in vacation fun. What can Vermont mean to you? Well, let's see what it has meant to two of America's great artists. Meade Schaefer and Norman Rockwell have found that in the little town of Arlington, there is a fullness of life which has made possible their great portrayal of the American scene. Perhaps their own words can tell us best just how they feel about the state they now call home.
Shafe, you tell them why you came to Vermont.
Well, I came to Vermont for a lot of reasons. I like the hunting and fishing. There's lots of opportunity for landscape painting. Well, there just isn't any place like Vermont.
That about tells the story. And I'm sure Shafe and I agree on the most important reason. We like the people here in Vermont.
You will like Vermonters too. And when you think of the place where dreams have come true for countless folks like you and me, you'll remember sunset on the lakes and the clean smell of the woods. You'll remember the wild ducks flying south and making patterns in the sky. And Vermont will mean to you, as it has to me, a place to visit, a place to work, and a place to live. It will mean the church on the common, or perhaps on the hill. And above all, it will mean a community which is home.
You know, sometimes folks call me crotchety and stubborn. Yes, they do. But the way I feel about it, this isn't a big town, and we don't have room for those that don't fit in. But you folks do. And I want you to know you're going to have that house if I have to sell it to you.